It's not unusual to have doubts about ourselves. We all do at times. But too much doubt can impair our leadership capacities and even go as far as causing us to feel like a full-fledged imposter. It's a nasty pattern that messes with our heads and our businesses. In this video, we'll explore how to free ourselves from self-doubt so we can fully open our ability to flow and operate optimally. So first, let's take a slow, deep breath. A very common scenario that can cause us to feel a bit like an imposter is when we reach a level of recognition that we aren't quite convinced we're worthy of. A healthy approach to this is to see that level as a bar to rise up to, or beyond. To work hard, use our talent, skill, and experience to meet the challenges we face. Reaching higher levels of achievement or not, the key is to learn, to not take it personally. Because it's when we make our success about ourselves that we get ourselves into trouble. When we do take it personally, we create a mind-made hole for us to dig ourselves out of. We try too hard attempting to not fail. We overthink situations, and we underperform when we do these things because we're so busy trying not to fail that we aren't sufficiently clear and focused to lead wisely. Through life's trials and tribulations, most of us become, to some degree, unconvinced of our self-worth. It starts early in our lives when we're in learning situations that influence how we see ourselves. Many CEOs I've worked with could recall numerous childhood moments where they successfully completed tasks but were told that what they had done just wasn't good enough. Some could recall achieving something, yet getting no recognition at all from their parents or teachers. Most recall being criticized and feeling diminished when they didn't get things right. And almost all of them voiced how these lasting impressions left traces of doubt about their capacities. This isn't intended to slam parents or teachers. Most are doing the best that they can, but are either overwhelmed in their own lives or simply not skilled or aware enough around how to nurture kids well. It's not hard to see how these types of experiences, though, can negatively influence how we see ourselves. We all know what it's like. With enough time and repetition, even the strongest among us can begin to take these unskillfully delivered messages personally. And this can linger as a stealth program in our consciousness, loitering in the back of our minds, waiting for just the wrong opportunity to spring forth, usually when something big is on the line. That we've become CEOs is a testament to our talent, strength, and resilience. But the influence of those early years remains, and as many successful CEOs have shared, that childhood wounding can at times get in the way of them performing at their best. So how do we deal with this? Conscious leadership always starts with awareness. In this case, self-awareness. The first thing that's required is to marshal the courage to acknowledge that at times we experience self-doubt, and that at times, for some of us at least, that may even extend all the way to feeling somewhat like an imposter. It's okay. Many of us don't want to admit having any vulnerability like this. If it doesn't feel safe, that tells us that fear is alive in us. Not fear that a large predator is chasing us, but mind-made fear that's based in our wounded history. Some of us may fear that if people see us in doubt or not knowing what the best path forward is, that they won't respect us or that they'll use it against us in some way at some point. The irony in this is that when we don't even admit this to ourselves, we really are being imposters because we're pretending to be someone we're not. And worse, we're doing this to ourselves. You're a CEO, so do an assessment. Survey your inner landscape to assess the degree to which you've been impacted by self-doubt. And more importantly, consider the types of situations that tend to trigger you. So when I'm coaching people, I often ask them to look at what energy they're operating from. If we're reacting emotionally, we're often operating from fear, which is a very powerful energy. For example, if a board member or your spouse questions whether you're certain about what you've just said. If you get triggered and react defensively, that's likely born out of fear, and it sucks the life out of the room and everyone feels the drain. When we significantly raise our awareness, we can begin to see what's really going on in those triggered moments. They're just asking a question. I don't need to fall into fear or doubting myself. How about I just take a second and check whether I truly am clear about what I said? And the aware CEO might even realize that the board member might have asked the question not to challenge us, but because the board member's own fear about the situation. Now, this opens doors to thoughtful conversation and relationship building, versus hitting the board member on the head with a loud, "Damn it, yes, I'm sure! What the hell?" So how can we reduce self-doubt in our lives? Doubt is a mind-made pattern we typically adopt at a very young age to survive or protect ourselves. When triggering situations take place, self-protective doubt leaps forward as a function of our brains being on automatic. The key here is that self-doubt is a reaction to a thought that reminds us of an old, unhealed pain about not being good enough. And that stimulates even more negative thinking and emotional reactivity. But we're not stuck with being at the effect of this. Here are just a few of the many techniques available that can help minimize self-doubt. So the first is rewiring. There's a ton of really good research over decades that's proven that our brains have sufficient neuroplasticity, which allows for patterns like this to change. We can retrain the brain. And neuroplasticity is about our brain's ability to adapt, grow, and evolve. And techniques exist to effectively rewire these types of patterns, like self-doubt. I find that those who work with rewiring in a committed way experience amazing, significant shifts. Another great way is to see through the illusion of our thinking. Our interpretations of what's going on are usually colored by our history and our wounds, and that overlays a bunch of distorted crud on top of what's truly going on, meaning what's real. The work of Byron Katie is a very effective technique that can free us to live more in what's really happening rather than in our distorted interpretations of what's taking place. You can find it online at 𝗬work.com, and I'll leave the link below. It's best if you can find someone to guide you through the process at the beginning so you can really learn how to focus your use of it where it's most beneficial. Katie's process is simple and powerful, and it's a series of 4 questions followed by a turnaround. I'm going to walk through it in detail in another video so we can really dig into how helpful it can be. But for now, here are those 4 questions so you can get a sense of what she's talking about. You start with a thought or belief that's irritating you, and then you walk through these questions. Is it true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? How do you react when you believe that thought? Who would you be without that thought? Or another way of asking this question is, what would your life be like free of that thought? And then you do a turnaround, which is coming up with a thought that is as true or more true than the original thought you're actually questioning. We'll go far more into that in the video that I do on the work of Byron Katie. So here's the next way that we can use to help neutralize self-doubt. No matter how evolved one becomes, there will always be a situation that can find some old unhealed pain within us and trigger us. That's not a problem if we turn toward it and address it so that it doesn't get in the way of our ability to lead. For those moments, the process that a dear friend of mine, 𝗪𝘆𝘀 developed is very helpful. The focus of her work is on fully allowing our experiences rather than tightening up and fighting or avoiding those feelings. Feelings are information. Ignoring or denying them keeps us uninformed, and at times blind to things that are essential for us to become aware of. Mary offers her own series of 4 questions that help people shift from being affected and off balance to a more centered, grounded, calm state from which we can see more clearly and lead wisely. So here's the process. The first question: in this moment, what am I experiencing? And that's followed by, for this moment, can I just allow this to be? And in response to the stress or pain that's alive in us, that which has affected us, she asks, and in this moment, can I touch this with compassion? And finally, with your system a bit more calm, greater clarity returned, you can move on to this question. In this moment, what's truly needed? When it comes to self-doubt, if self-doubt is arising, we can say, all right, in this moment, what am I experiencing? And we notice, self-doubt. And then we can say, for this moment, can I just allow that this exists, right? Without trying to push it away. Okay, I can just be with the fact that there's self-doubt. And then in this moment, can I touch this with compassion? Can I have compassion that there's self-doubt? And just kind of like, not pathetic pity for ourselves, but just some compassion. And then once we allow all that, then can I find out what I really need right now? And that starts an inquiry internally, okay? Next up is the Sedona Method, a process that facilitates accessing our natural ability to let go of uncomfortable or unwanted emotions on the spot. In the heat of the moment, this can come in handy, right before you reactively tell your board of directors or your spouse what you really think. So check it out online. It's very helpful. I'll leave a link below. But here's my simple favorite. My dear friend Inula often says, why does everyone stay so wrapped up in their doubting minds? Why doesn't anyone ever doubt the doubt? It's really simple, obvious, and so true. Alas, our patterns are rarely exclusive to one area of our lives, so addressing self-doubt in your life as a leader will most definitely convey benefit to your personal life as a whole. Of this, I have no doubt. There's a lot more content on the 𝗙𝗿𝗲𝗂𝗲 website, as well as info on how we can connect. I'll leave the link down below so you can check it out. Until next time, lead wisely.